one final thing we can look to as a potential canary in the coal mine for war on the horizon with Iran is deployment of these special operations forces to the region. Okay, and we've already seen that Delta Force, the group responsible for the kidnapping of President Maduro and Celia Flores, his wife, have deployed to the Middle East. So Delta Force left Caracas, they went to Guantanamo Bay, sent the Maduros on their way to the MDC, to Southern District of New York, and they headed on off to the Middle East. Let me be honest with you. The situation in Iran right now is not great, okay? And I don't just mean the riots, I don't just mean the violence, I don't just mean the chaos every single night. We are going to be talking in depth about these riots in a moment and what's happening. It's not just AI videos. It's not just like all a bunch of fake videos or something like that. It is happening, right? But right now, I want to talk a little bit about the potential of war, okay? There are a whole host of figures calling for kinetic action. It's their new favorite word, new favorite phrase, rather, to gloss over what is actually going on, right? The bombing of innocent civilians and decapitation strikes to try and overthrow sovereign democratically elected governments. Kinetic action. We need to take kinetic action on Iran, on the mullahs. That's what they say. Now, what's interesting is how do we possibly know if a war is coming? There's a few ways you could possibly know if a war is coming. First of all, if people are outright saying it. That seems to be probably the most clear-cut way to determine if there's a war coming, right? Donald Trump has effectively threatened that now. He gave the green light to Netanyahu during their New Year's Eve meetings. He said if Iran continues to develop their ballistic missile program, then yes, I would support action against Iran, which of course would require U.S. support and logistics and refueling and whatnot. Now, he also said if Iran continues their nuclear program, then yes, we have to hit them, but fast. Absolutely, but fast, he said. So Donald Trump has given the green light. In recent days, Donald Trump has made other threats. You know, he said that if Iran shoots one of these protesters dead on the street, then we will begin bombing Iran immediately. All right. Don't lose sight of the fact, by the way, that federal ICE immigration and custom enforcement officials just shot an unarmed single mother of three illegal observer in the face this week in Minneapolis amid their deployment to Minneapolis due to the high levels of just slop on X on Twitter that's being pushed by like 19-year-old YouTube Twitter activists, right? So because of all the X slop about Somali fraud and these daycare programs or schools or something like that, these educational programs, Somali fraud allegedly taking place, ICE was deployed, and then they shot a mother in the face the same day in which Donald Trump is saying if any of the Iranian rioters backed by Mossad get shot at as they are committing heinous, violent acts all across the country, the violent acts, burning stuff down, crafting Molotov cocktails, you name it. If any of them are unalived, right, then Donald Trump will then take the appropriate measure to unalive even more Iranians. Does that make sense to you? So Donald Trump hypothetically is so angered that an Iranian who would hypothetically in this case be backed by Mossad to do horrible things in Iran, violent things, criminal things, if they get shot at, then Donald Trump is going to kill more Iranians. Doesn't make any sense, right? It's a flawed logic. And it's a logic that only really makes sense if you understand that they are not searching for a red line to be crossed. They have already determined that they will cross that red line. I'm saying that the U.S. has already determined that Iran will cross that red line. And the U.S. will just make it up. They'll just say, oh, you did this, you did that, so we're going to come in and bomb you now. Simple as, right? That's what they're going to do. But the prospects of war in Iran right now are very serious. What are some of the other things that we could potentially expect to see happen if there is a war on the horizon? Well, first of all, the Pentagon, the ever trustworthy Pentagon Domino's Pizza radar is going off the chain right now. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like the Pentagon, when they are working 24/7, they order a bunch of like pizzas or something from the Domino's Pizza next by. They have like a website that tracks this, whether or not the Domino's Pizza near the Pentagon is operating at, below, or above normal business levels at certain hours of the day or night, right? So that is a clear indicator, and we've seen that jumping to record highs. I think that Domino's is going to have like a record 4 years under Trump, right? Another thing that we could expect to see are these massive USS carrier strike groups being deployed to the Mediterranean. As of right now, they are still in the Caribbean, which I guess may serve as as justification for the Iranians to have a sigh of relief. But, you know, that could change at any point in time. The U.S. has been doing a lot of, obviously, weapon shipments to the region. And there's only one big target that they have in mind right now, which is Iran. Although I guess, you know, the Israelis are attacking Lebanon again, because after violating the ceasefire thousands of times since it was put in place with the Lebanese, they've now said, okay, we're not going to adhere to the ceasefire anymore. When did you ever? What ceasefire are you even talking about? So there's that, right? And then one final thing we can look to as a potential canary in the coal mine for war on the horizon with Iran is deployment of these special operations forces to the region. Okay, and we've already seen that Delta Force, the group responsible for the kidnapping of President Maduro and Celia Flores, his wife, have deployed to the Middle East. So Delta Force left Caracas, they went to Guantanamo Bay, sent the Maduros on their way to the MDC, to Southern District of New York, and they headed on off to the Middle East. So what I'm saying is there is a very real threat of war on the horizon. The Israelis obviously have been saying that this is what they want since the 12-day war came to an end. I don't even need to get into that. And what I've got to say is I feel like we've seen far too many times, you know, take a look at this, all right? Russia. The Ukrainians built up all these NATO arms, all these very, very elaborate, military defense structures all across the Donbass, right? All across the Novorossiya region for years on end. They were slaughtering ethnic Russians in the Donbass. And before they could place nukes in Ukraine, what did Russia do? They went in. Make of the operation what you will that Russia has led. You can have critiques. You can not have critiques. You can feel however you want about it. You could say maybe it would have gone better if they had done this, that, or the third, right? Have those opinions if you want. But the fact on the ground is that in every single direction, the Russian military is moving forward faster than they have at any point since the start of the operation right now. So could you say that they moved too late? You could, but they definitely, I guess, moved quick enough if the threat was NATO taking in Ukraine, as Kamala Harris threatened at the Vilnius summit, NATO Vilnius summit with Zelensky, and they were discussing the prospects of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Could have been worse, right? Venezuela, on the other hand, had all these ships along their coast for months on end, doing airstrikes on Colombian fishermen, Trinidad and Tobago fishermen, Venezuelan fishermen, threatening land strikes each and every day. It was like every day we had the threat of land strikes. And then eventually they did do a land strike on a port. How many of you think that North Korea would have tolerated that? Now, I know I'm apples to oranges. North Korea has nukes. They have a very robust military industrial complex in their own sovereign right. Apples to oranges, right? But still, even if North Korea didn't have nukes, do you think they would have tolerated that? Do you think they would have allowed those U.S. warships off their coast and not done a single thing about it until Kim Jong-un was grabbed in the middle of the night by Delta operators? I don't think so. I don't think so. So that leads us to the conclusion here as for Iran versus Israel and the United States. What is Iran to do? Not for me to decide. I'm an American. I really have no stake personally in the future of Iran other than I want the people's will to be reflected and respected in the future of the country. And I want prosperity for all people across the world, right? That being said, I think it goes without saying that waiting until the 11th hour of the 11th, 11th hour of the 11th minute of the 59th second of the whatever, it's like this is maybe not the best idea to say, well, we'll just let the Israelis do more decapitation strikes first, and then we'll see what we can muster up in response. Maybe it'll work for them. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I think we should maybe also look at recent history as, as a tool, right? Everyone always says, oh, Iran didn't start this. Russia didn't start this. China didn't start this. Venezuela didn't start this. It was the imperialist order that started these attacks against these freedom-loving people. True. But what good is playing the victim if you always lose? Okay, Russia's not losing. China's not losing. Those are major powers, major countries, huge populations, massive military might, right? Question still stands. What good is waiting until someone else takes the first step if it only is going to guarantee your country, your people, your sovereignty, your cohesion as a nation a doomed defeat? I don't know. It's worth thinking about, though. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.